And we are back with that lovely little gesture from George V underscore AFC. Welcome back, people. Apparently, we are alive and we're okay for once. So it's good to be back. Thank you for all the support and the messages about where are you guys and stuff. Everyone has life happening, and we are back. There's no massive breakup apart from Chris being Chris. But I wanted to know the reaction. But let's see what happens now. We're going to be doing a lot more content and new content. Things are going to change quite a lot. So thank you for all the support, and we're looking forward to seeing what happens next. So let's get into this because we are going to be talking not about something in particular, but especially about this past season because it's been a long season, lads, and one that we're going to have to dissect quite well because obviously the title did not come to London, it went to Manchester. But the fact that we were here in the first place and now the dust has settled, it's time to get over and see how things worked out and what was good, what was bad, and get into it. So, how are both of you, first of all? But very quickly, don't try and take the 5 minutes, please, lads, please.
No, I'm good. I mean, look, we've come on basically when Ornstein's dropped the entire news that, all the fee agreements and everything's done. So, I mean, that's always good timing from a content perspective. And, I'm sure we'll talk about Rice. But, for me, this season was a massive success. We took a lot of strides forward that I just don't think many people expected from the very start, even the most optimistic of fans. And, it was kind of a case of evolving your expectations as the season went on. So regardless of whatever you may think, nobody had us in with legitimate title contention at the start of the season. It wasn't a thought process that we really had. And then, as our plays kind of developed, expectations changed. And so, it was definitely something that, I was happy about. But then, I think as Jan came around, I was still worried about the squad's general quality from actually sustaining a title challenge. And so I was always somebody that was ridiculed for kind of holding back on some of the stuff. And, I think some of the stuff came to roost, I'll be honest with you, in terms of the squad's quality right now and in terms of what we could do. There were still some holes that would have needed to be filled if we wanted to be in a title. Because look, I think fundamentally what we need to learn is, I always relate top four as kind of like high school, right? You can do well in high school by doing a lot of work and hard work, and you can get good grades. But then when you get to university, when you get to the title, sometimes hard work's not enough. Sometimes, you need to make sure that you're perfect in order to get a really good grade. And, that unfortunately is kind of something that I saw with Arsenal to a certain degree. There were certain things that we definitely did to ourselves, i.e. the coach. I think he made some mistakes in the run-in. But at the same token, I think we took huge strides forwards in terms of just the team recognizing themselves as no longer the youth that everyone kept propping up. There were some people with huge seasons, Martinelli, Martin Odegaard, Thomas Partey for a majority of the season. Like there are a lot of people that you could go through, Ben White, Gabriel, people that took significant steps forward in both not just their reputation, but also their abilities. And we saw a lot of growth within the team. So I think right now is a lovely bubble before the big team arrived. And I think we had to go out and do exactly what we did, which was essentially get Declan Rice. And so you're basically, you're at this point, as most people do, which is going to transfers about how you can improve the team. But I think fundamentally this season really took us to another level.
Yeah, I think, well, personally, I'm good. We haven't been here for a long time. I've kind of missed doing this, but we will do more and more and more. But on the season as a whole, I think we had next to the best what we could have hoped for. Obviously, you want a treble, but purely from what we were as a team going into the season, everyone looking at our summer as being a lot of busts. The highest predictions that we got were probably from people like me, were like third, that were seen as very optimistic. Even top four, people didn't think we were going to get top four, top six. So going into the season, getting 19 or 50 points in 19 games, and then ending on 84, we did fall off a little bit, but it was very hard to maintain what one of the best start in Arsenal Premier League history. It's very hard to maintain something like that, but it is great to take them strides and for the team to learn, because they probably do learn more from losing the title like this than winning the league the way they did. But yeah, it is necessary experience. Europe was probably the only disappointment of the season. Obviously, losing the league was disappointing, but overall, second is pretty much the best you can hope for against one of the best teams in Premier League history, a treble winner. But losing the Europa like that was very disappointing. But yeah, it was a great season. Great for players that played for Arsenal and didn't play. Like Balogun is the biggest he's ever been in his career by far, and he didn't play for Arsenal at all. And he broke records elsewhere. So the club as a whole, I think, had a very good season. And a good summer now.
I think the best way to, because someone in the comments just mentioned, we need to forget the review, we need to look forward. The best way to look forward and to see what this team holds for the future is to go back and see how this team has progressed. And we need to go through what's happened this season, because there are things that we need to improve, and there are things that we need to go back and say, look, the club has done well, and it gives you hope for the future. Because I think if we go back to our season predictions, I think all of us had us third. Am I mistaken? I had us third.
Oh no, I think we all had us third.
Yeah,
It
we
was
all
a
third,
challenge.
yeah.
I think
I had Liverpool winning it, so you never know. These things happen. So, but my thing is, look, you remember, but yeah, my thing is, look, you have to look at this as not overperforming, but a marker down for what the future will hold, and that's what the main thing is, and that's what we have to talk about. We have to start going into these things and talk about how we set a strategy that will keep us going and take us into the future. And I think we should start doing that with just look at the signings we made in the summer. I think we look at that window of Jesus, Zinchenko, these guys coming in. I mean, what did you take away from the summer and going into this season? How did you feel about our window?
I mean, I thought there were some good deals in there, and I thought that we did a good job of solidifying our top four challenge. Like I thought that going into the window, I didn't think it was enough to be a title challenging team, and that's the overperformance part. I think we all have to be honest with that, and that was something that I didn't see going into the window. One thing I did see though was that it definitely confirmed for me top four. Like I was never in doubt about us getting top four after the window. We took a step up in terms of just the quality that we introduced. But one thing that I still maintain is the depth. And I still believe that there were certain levels of starting 11 quality that we still needed to improve upon. But, that window was a good first step in terms of getting value, in terms of making sure that some of the team was upgraded in certain areas and allowed us to kind of attack in a different way. But mainly the biggest thing that it allowed was really going to be for the press. And, that was one thing that I was very excited to see change. I've been peddling the 6-channel attack on this channel for so long. I've been peddling this idea of a box midfield for so long, and we finally saw that kind of realized in a lot of different forms this season. I still think that there was a way for us to evolve from it, and I've got some ideas about how we're going to evolve next season. But I think fundamentally the press was probably something that I took away as the best part of last season. It was phenomenal. It was suffocating. It was impenetrable. And when we were able to do it with our starting 11, it was unbeatable, including against City. I don't think we were able to necessarily play City with kind of the starting 11 that we would have wanted in terms of that press. But in terms of the first half of the season, the big reason why we went on with club record point totals and a potential run of a centurion on pacing was because of that press. It wasn't to do with particular individual quality, even though the individual quality of the team generally was great. It wasn't one man. We spread goals really well. We operated as a team phenomenally well. I think there was a clarity in our buildup that was phenomenal. We did force more people in the box than we did towards the latter half of the season. I'd say from January onwards, because of some injuries we suffered in terms of our transition controls. If you were to go into some of the numbers, we weren't as compact as we were centrally at the beginning of the season. And a lot of that had to do with some injuries to key players that we had, namely Gabriel Jesus leading from the front. And of course, William Saliba towards the end suffered a bit. But, in between those kind of months where we struggled, we got some other injuries to Tomiyasu and whatnot, and we were unable to basically sustain that press that we did at the start of the season. And I think that was the big reason. And what we did to change was by adding a defender basically in the back. So we went from more of a 2-3 build up at this first half of the season to a 3-2 build up. And that's how we ended up trying to control transitions because of the impact on our defense. And so that had some major ramifications. I don't think it allowed us to commit as many bodies forward, and it didn't allow us to really create those same qualitative superiority on the wide channels that we had done at the beginning of the season. But all in all, you cannot look at this season as anything more than a massive step forward, a massive confirmation of some of these fundamentals and ideals. And I'm very excited because I felt that we played the best football this season, regardless of what you might think about objectives and whatnot. The pure football that was achieved by Arsenal was the best quality. Manchester City have gone away with all the objectives, and that's fine. But I still felt that there was a certain fluidity to Arsenal that was very different to Manchester City. It was not this replica that people keep thinking that it is. There was a lot more fluid rotation in terms of our wide overloads and how we attacked. And I was just very confident that moving forward, we're going to see a lot more invention in the attack, because I still think that's something that we have to develop. By the way, there's attacking patterns that I think this Arsenal team has to develop. We saw excellent off the ball structure. We saw excellent build up structure, and we saw excellent blocks respectively, by the way, the famous 3-5-2 block with holding, the famous, different ways that we set up defensively was really cool to watch. But I still believe that there's a large attacking pattern potential with this team. And there was a lot of times that, Bukayo Saka, who has just become the best right wing on the planet. And, it's exciting for me to see that boy grow, because I still don't think that we've seen all that he could be. Martinelli took a huge step up this season in terms of that central progression, that central transition into becoming a little bit more sturdy into contact. A lot more people seeing his big potential centrally. But yeah, beyond like individual players, I would just say that, the team itself, the MVP was the press. And that's what we're kind of going to go into next season behind, really.
Yeah, I do think last summer signings did have a big impact. Saliba was kind of he didn't get signed, but it was the first full season for him for us. Jesus, Zinchenko, Vieira probably had a little less impact as those, but I think the summer signings did have a big impact on the way we played. They were a big miss when they were off the pitch. I didn't necessarily think we had the greatest window ever. I didn't think it was a 10-10 window, but the way we played in pre-season and the way we did start the season did show they had a big impact on the way we were going to be as a club moving forward. I think even the January signings were good signings that eventually throughout the season had a big impact, probably more closer to January than the end of the season, but he did have a big impact. And Kiwior was very impactful in the late end of the season when Saliba got injured and he finally decided to bench Holding. But overall, I think even with the signings, even where we don't have the greatest depth, we do have very good depth, I think. It can be improved on, but it hasn't been used to know if these players can consistently produce. Arteta, I don't think, used our team well enough throughout the season, especially considering he signed, 8 players this season? Yeah, Marquinhos was on loan, so he signed like eight players this season. A lot of them didn't play much. And our first 11 did play the most minutes of any team in Europe. And going into the Champions League, I don't think that should happen again. I don't think we should be anywhere near that top 5, top 10 for players playing the most amount of minutes. Having Gabriel, who played...
Well, we need a squad of 16, not 11. That's really what it is. And that was the difference between us and City.
Because guys like Gabriel played nearly every minute I think he averaged 88 minutes a game. Yeah. He played nearly every minute of every game this season. And really only keepers should be doing that. If we're being true, a team in the top 4, a team that tried to contend in Europe, shouldn't have a guy like Saka start 37 games.
No.
Shouldn't have Gabriel start 38 games. I think stuff like that is something that Arteta will have to work on, and hopefully he does, because if he doesn't, I think he will obviously be, and it will be forced to because of the Champions League, but if he doesn't, it will be impactful next season. But yeah, our signings were good, very, very good, and in retrospect look better. At the time, I was, what was it, a 7 out of 10 window I think I gave it, but now I'd still give it a 7, 8 out of 10. I think I'd give it an 8 out of 10.
I think it's fair to like bump it up to like maybe an 8.5. Like for me, I'd probably revise mine. I said the same. I think I said 6.5 or 7 in total. And I still think that we still didn't sell well. We still, didn't address enough starting 11 positions to maybe go a step up. But ultimately, we did the bare minimum of my objective. Like if I'm looking at top 4 as being a guarantee, we guaranteed that and some. So I definitely think 8.5 is probably fair, especially with the quality of football that we played. I'll be honest, I didn't think with that transfer window we would produce the quality and consistency of performances that we did, especially from August until January. Really, like there was some phenomenal consistency, and there were some big performances, guys. Like the Anfield performance, and we'll get into specifics, but there were some big hoodoos that we basically got rid of. The last season, and I really saw us advance more than I thought the window allowed us to do. For example, Declan Rice, I have big expectations. We'll get into that a little bit later in terms of what that impacts on the future. But Declan Rice is the type of signing that you start to yell, I want titles. And respectfully, Zinchenko and Jesus, who were the biggest marquees of the window, are not signings that you're going to be with chest saying, I expect titles. What I expect from them is phenomenal senior pros. What I expect from them is to really improve the squad, but they're a level of signing that is below the elite of the elite. And that's not bad. It's not a criticism, but it would.
It's how you build a squad.
It's how you build a squad. It is. Like you supplement these big boy spine signings with people like that, with people able to do it. And by the way, we'll talk about it, but I think that they were a little bit emotional, those two, in the run-in. In terms
and it
of
was kind of really impossible to make a Declan Rice type signing.
It was.
Last summer with the situation we were in 5th, we bottled top 4. Truly, we bottled top 4. We go into the summer getting Jesus and Zinchenko to kind of, well, not really step down. Well, they're stepping down from Champions League, but they weren't starting week in, week out. Was big. A lot of people were happy with the Jesus signing. They did think he wouldn't score, and I think he was on track to get in his first 20-goal season without the long-term injury. But guys like even Eddie and Ketcher stepped up very well when they were meant to be used. Trossard, obviously, we signed for a small amount of money, did step up for us, and that's what we all need, and that's what we did have. I was surprised that Arteta didn't use them more, and I think I'll forever say that he should have used the squad more, and someone of his level probably will get used to it. But yeah, the squad overall, I think, was a very good squad compared to what I thought they were at the start of the season. They did surprise me.
I mean, Mikel said it himself at the end of the season. He said he didn't use the squad well enough, and that's ultimately what cost us.
No, I'll be honest, a little bit of like an emotional thing, and I'll pass it over to you, Kerr, like really quickly. But what frustrates me about Mikel Arteta is how self-aware he is. I kind of wish he was this bumbling idiot, and I say this in group chats quite a bit. Like, he's obviously an absolute genius for his football tactics and how he sets up. But there are certain things that are just the basics of football that sometimes he's got to trust his squad better. He's got to find ways to be able to replicate some of his system in other players. And we'll talk about the holding effect on the season. But seeing Wolves, after screaming for it after the Saliba injury since the very moment he was injured, is probably one of the most frustrating things, but describes Mikel the best. Like, he's somebody that's going to be stubborn to his ideals to a fault, even to the point of potentially, impacting the season. But then beyond that, he does have the self-reflection to at least understand where he went wrong. It's just maddening from a fan perspective, because you're like, well, I saw you understand the lessons that you've learned there, but why couldn't we see it in the moment? But no matter what, he's
always done that. He's always
done that.
He's always told us what he did wrong, and I think in the moment he knows exactly what he did wrong, because someone so detailed as a coach, and with other very detailed coaches around him like Steven Berg and the other people we have, I think they're always aware of right and wrong within what they do. But
it's what makes it frustrating more for me. I almost wish it was ignorance. Like, I almost wish it was like, no, I did forget to do this, my bad kind of thing. But it's like, no, I'm going to describe the exact ways in which we faltered, and I'm going to end up doing the exact system that I know would have been the solution on the very last day, when it didn't matter, when the title was gone. But look, these are learning curves, and sorry, I didn't want to take away from Kerr. You were making a point.
No, it's quite simple. I just thought that Mikel himself has kind of said in the interviews and in the articles that he didn't use the squad well enough, and that is kind of what has happened with this because we weren't able to pivot into maybe a white centre back, Partey right back, and we've discussed this ad nauseum while it was happening. I think we didn't adjust well enough after Sporting, and talking of which, we do need to get into the actual football. But I just want to say as a last point that if you talk about our window, it's a floor raiser without having the ceiling raiser that we kind of needed, and that's why I was so I kind of lost it at the end of last season, because I thought, no top four, would the contracts be able to get signed? They have. Well, would be able to compete in the future. We've more than competed. We've now signed Declan Rice, hopefully. We're just waiting for final confirmation, but Ornstein obviously has done Ornstein things. Everything that I thought, all my worries going into the season have kind of disappeared, and I'm chuffed to bits to say that. So, but we have to talk about this season, because we started as a train. It was just going win after win. Things were going so well. We were top of the league, and then I think the first real test, as it were, was Liverpool at home, because we obviously had that hoodoo with Firmino, and we haven't really seen a real sort of win, a statement win under Mikel Arteta against Klopp, and this was one, and that 3-2 victory was, especially the way we played that game, because I think the hallmark of that early season, that first half of the season before the World Cup, was we didn't give up ever. Whenever we conceded, we got back up. And
well, I think in terms of the season, I have to double check, but I think we were one of the teams, if not the team, but one of the best teams at recovering losing positions throughout the season. So there was many times that we recovered points, whether through draws, losses, or losing game states, that we were able to turn it back. And we were very good about making sure at every major barrier or hurdle, like we responded quite quick, and we never let it impact us. And one of the biggest things that I learned from the season before, by the way, was the fact that, if you guys remember, whenever we would get a goal scored, there was some kind of barrier, the team would drop 10 to 15 yards back, and we'd have to come on screen here trying to defend. Is this a mentality issue, or is this philosophy? Is Mikel Arteta ordering his players to kind of go back, which was always a little bit ridiculous to me. But, I felt that our response to kind of negative things that would happen to the team was to maintain our fundamentals. It was really mature in that aspect. I'm going to make a weird claim. I actually learned a lot more about us at the first half of the season in terms of our maturity than the second half of the season. It was obviously something that I think if we carried some of the similar mentality that we did in the first half to the second half, there would have been a different outcome for me. I think there was some people that actually maintained quite a bit of their composure in the first half of the season. There was never a time that we looked flustered, even if we went down. It wasn't against the script, whether it was right before or after halftime. There was just a lot better maintaining of game states. The only thing I will say is Arsenal in general didn't do a great job about varying the tempo of their passing sequences. So one thing that I looked at, that there was this stat that kind of looked at both in losing, winning, and drawing game states, what are the amount of passing frequencies that you may see? And, in terms of Manchester City, of course, we recognize that, Arsenal are going to be more direct than Man City. That's no problem. But one thing that I did notice is we didn't change our passing sequence numbers in any of the game states, which is not something that you would love to see. I mean, in theory, if you're going to be losing, you would ideally see us more direct. And then when you're drawing or winning, you would see us have elongated passing sequences so that you're not as direct, you're not taking as many chances. We didn't quite do that. No matter what happened, we were direct and on it in any game state. And I think that that's probably something that we might need to learn a little bit for next season, that we can vary that up a bit. But in general, I thought Liverpool was important. For me, United was amazing. I will always maintain Manchester United are the true rival. Everything else is kind of by obligation. And for me I was never doubting that performance, but just to see it and the way that, the boys rose above kind of the absolute corruption that was attempted. It made me happy. Just seeing the team take that step up and basically taking it to the big boys. And I think our record against the big boys was actually very, very good. It's always been good with Arteta, but it was really good last season. And, we played, again, the best football for me. Maybe something that I was annoyed with, Sporting annoyed me very much so.
I
think
was
our
there for
European,
it.
yeah, I think our European our European sample has really been poor with Arteta generally. If you're really going to be fair, like if you talk about the Europa League and in terms of us failing in those competitions twice, especially who we lost to, and then when you look at Sporting, there was no reason for us to lose that game on quality. Like I don't think you can hide behind that. I was just more frustrated with, again, not to isolate, but I think Zinchenko was overly emotional in that game. And, you're looking towards your kind of emotional leaders to take you through difficult moments. And it was the complete opposite. And so then when you looked at it, the entire team wasn't able to step up and respond in that moment. And, it's frustrating. But I think Sporting was probably my biggest low, beyond obviously the Saliba injury, which, forced us to kind of rework our team. But yeah, I think that, in general, beyond specific games, I think if I had to point to one moment in the team that, either I felt disappointed versus, the elation, I think for me, the epitome was actually the Manchester City game in February, the cup game. I've never seen a team do that to Manchester City. We didn't get the result that we needed, but I have never seen a team so far back. And in fact, it was statistically mentioned that, nobody has forced Manchester City back that far. And that game, boys, is actually what changed Pep, if you guys remember, with the John Stones inverted role. From that moment on, that was when he was trialing issues because he was anticipating Arsenal. And, it was at that time that he changed the system. It was at that time that they turned into Centurion kind of treble winning form towards the end of the season. And I just felt that match showed me a lot for Mikel to basically go up with what he had, and especially with Rob Holding in the back line, to do what you did to that City team with a player of his quality in the back line was phenomenal. I think that was the highlight of my season, even though it was a loss.
Chris?
Well, yeah, I think the start to the season was great. We had 27 points in the first 10. The first time we've ever done that. Obviously, the loss to United was tough to take because we did start to a goal in 12 minutes, I believe it was. Martinelli scored that goal, and then we could have won that. And we probably would have won for 10 points and been the best start to a season since Chelsea of 04 or 05, which is the best start to a season. So 05, 06, the best start to a season. But yeah, we started the season better than we've ever done, and the optimism was out. Everyone was saying, it's just a purple patch. People started to. And then when you get up to the World Cup, 50 points in 19, then the World Cup makes you dwell on it. You start thinking, we can really win the league here. We can really go far here. And the expectation starts rising. And you beat United in January. The expectation just keeps going up and up. You beat Tottenham away. Then Everton, that hits you like a brick wall and brings you back to reality. We're not unbeatable. We can lose. We're not an invincible team. We do make mistakes, and then we do bounce back. We do have that great game versus Aston Villa, where we come back in and around that time. We just have good comebacks. Bournemouth was a good comeback, but then the Southampton period, the 3 City losses. City were the only team in the top 10 that City beat away from home. Were actually the only team that lost at home to City. They do clearly up their level when they play us. Like Kevin De Bruyne's best performances this season were against us, but I think there were great moments in the season. I think over the season, you did see the development of a team. You saw very different types of teams. Obviously, with Eddie up top, we saw a period of just Trossard and Martinelli going back and forth, interchanging, rotating. Trossard got 4 assists in a row, 5 assists in a row.
3 in a game.
Yeah, 3 in a game versus Fulham. He had a great period of time. I think the season should be broken up into little sections because the team was very different. Like one change, like Martinelli, Jesus to Nketiah made a big change to our team. And then Trossard coming in for Nketiah made a big change to our team. Kyrgios coming in for Saliba. Like the change certain players made to our team were drastic. It's, as George said, was very different to a City we don't have the depth to stay the same when we do make changes. That's City with their 3-2 now. They put in a Rico Lewis, it looks very similar. They put in a Foden, it looks very similar. So that's what we need to develop into. But for me, the best moment of the season was probably United at home. I think the way we won that 3-2 and catch a goal in the 90th minute. Going down to a typical United goal, just pure ball striking, like a little nutmeg on party, and Rashford puts it bottom corner. The keeper can't do anything about it. And then Saka scores the best goal in the game. Like that probably is, if I wanted to win a derby, that is probably the best way to win it.
Mm.
And then following that up by dominating Spurs, I couldn't wish for more. But yeah, that probably was the best moment of the season. And the start, I don't think we can top the start we've had to a season.
No, I mean, for me personally, I think the best moment was Bournemouth. I was there. I don't think I'll ever forget that.
It might
That
be the
was-
best vibesy moment of the
Well,
season.
I was there. So
That
for me,
is a
it's-
better way to win than United. You went down to, you concede, but we conceded the fastest goal in Premier League history. Like,
I know. But the
That-
thing is,
that
we had Bournemouth fans literally right below me going, "We're going down, our shit at you," and then going
To be
home
honest,
with no points.
I think
It was-
that moment from Reece is
Yeah.
that's what I was just about to say. It did deserve a league. That is the latest goal we've ever scored as a team. 97th minute, last kick of the game, and it did a lot for Reece's rep within the Arsenal fan base. Weirdly, I think he wasn't as highly rated as he was after that moment. Like, that moment was big for him, and people calling for him to start. Bournemouth was great, but we did have a lot of comebacks, Fulham.
That's what I was saying. I think we have the
Fulham,
most from
Lyon.
losing positions or tying or drawed positions all of last season. So we had a lot of moments, that
And we were barely, first half of the season, we were barely down, barely.
Even that Leicester game, when we in the beginning of the season,
Ramsdale save.
The Ramsdale save,
We were
the
down
Xhaka
that
goal, the Saliba own goal, and then the Xhaka
Then we
goal
made a
straight
4-2.
after.
Yeah.
Jesus on fire. Really, some really great games this season. And I think I said this mid-season. I don't think I've connected with an Arsenal team like this in a long, long time. Maybe since 11, 12, maybe. It's been a long time when it's been okay. I look forward to it. I look forward to watching us. I'm not there's no anxiousness. I just look forward to seeing what we're going to do on the pitch. And it hasn't been like that in so long. So I just feel like there's so many moments. But I do want to get into a couple of specific games. You mentioned United. I want to talk about Everton, because Everton specifically showed what the next stage of this Arsenal team needs to be. It needs to be more consistent defensively at times. I think there were times when, because the thing is, last season, not this season that's just gone, the last season, we were so good at defending set pieces. We didn't concede from a corner for however long. This season, it's been a bit up and down. There were periods where we did really well, but that corner we conceded from is it's unacceptable. And I think that we need to look at that as kind of a moment where you're okay, this is something we need to improve this season now. Defensive set pieces. When you're under the cosh, don't let
But
that
it's
go
weird
in.
because Nicholas Jover the season before had the best defensive set piece record. So I actually don't think it's a coaching issue. I did think it was a mentality issue. We kept talking about it on here at the end of games. I mean, the fact that Martin Odegaard would mark Tarkowski, that's not a coaching issue. That's just player logic. You shouldn't be marking their best aerial threat with one of our worst aerial threats. So I think, for me, it wasn't really a case of, a coaching improvement, let's say. But maybe a mentality thing in terms of concentration on set pieces as a whole, as a team. I did think that we points of improvement, maybe, because we have a lot of positives that we've already talked about, is, definitely the coach being a little bit less stubborn towards replicating some dynamics when, injured players arise. I think that in general, Arsenal, when they were at their best, was when we were using dynamic overloads with, Ben White along that, right-hand side. That Ben White to Saka combination was our most threatening combination pretty much all season. And that side, was one of the more threatening ones, despite Martinelli doing a phenomenal job. Kind of alternatively, I don't think that he had the same support that Saka had. But one of the big things for me was also making sure that the players are able to become a little bit more ruthless in their final action. Still think that we tried to recruit that, but I still think that we can be a lot more clinical in terms of making sure that we kill off teams and games a lot sooner than we do. There was many times that we left goals on the pitch, and I just think that if we're going to be those ruthless treble type winners, and that's like the bar that you're going to set to beat, then you need to be ruthless and clinical in your final action. And so we're just going to need to learn a little bit more of that, and I think get less emotional in game states as well. And I levy that at our more experienced players. I felt that we need to be a lot more composed than what we did. And that went for our midfield as well, which is why it's such a big point of interest. And I'm sure we'll probably transition after points of improvements of the season to the transfers, which everybody is definitely yelling about. And we've got our little bop special on the Rice thing that we have to talk about. But in general, I think those are the big things that I would look at for like areas of improvement for the team.
Chris, areas of improvement?
I think as a team, the set pieces were a big thing. Second half of the season more so than first half of the season. I do think at certain points in the season we did lack a bit of conviction. That was a little bit to do with Saka overplaying. Martinelli went into a bad run of form. Jesus and Nketiah coming in and out of the team through injuries. Their attack probably changed more than any other positions in the team. So I think that's why we lacked conviction at times, and it probably will be a lot more consistent for our next season. We will miss big chances. Whoever we do, if we do use Balogun, I don't think we will. He will miss big chances. He missed the most in Europe this season, 26. Jesus will miss big chances. Havertz will miss chances. So we all miss big chances. Whatever striker we use, we'll miss a lot of big chances. So we're going to have to get used to that. But as we continue to create, the amount you miss is less impactful. Like Haaland complained about missing a lot of chances, but he scored 30. I don't remember how many he scored. I honestly don't. 36, 38, whatever the number was, but we will miss chances. So it's all about creating them. And I do think we went through a period of starting the season starting games badly. Southampton, Bournemouth. We started games down and we gave ourselves mountains to climb. And sometimes that's like Bournemouth, we came back 3-2. Then sometimes versus Southampton, you come back 3-3 and you're dejected, depleted after the game because you didn't do enough to win the game back. But we did have success throughout the season. Even in those moments, it was great to watch. You wouldn't wish to watch a game differently than Bournemouth, but it is something we do need to work on as a team. And then Arteta changing the substitutions. We speak about it consistently. He needs to use the team better. But that's something we've spoken about multiple times, and something I think we will do as a club a lot better.
When we talk about what's going on and things we need to improve on, we've just announced a signing as it is, right? Literally,
talking about missing chances.
So first signing this summer, Kai Havertz. We'll speak to it with the Rice signing as well when those two get announced together. I think we'll do a special on it. But
they're announced. Havertz is done. So I don't know if you want to jump into it. We might as well. That's what everybody's here for. So look, in terms of Havertz, let's talk about it because I think it's an interesting one. It's not something that I went into the season expecting, and that is the transfer season. Sorry, I didn't expect this type of or profile of player as something that was definitely needed in terms of maybe trying to understand what kind of a player that we've got. Let's talk about it. He's a 6'3", 6'4" type of second striker in your Muller mold. I have that very famous clip where I compare him and ESR in terms of who has the highest potential. But when you're looking at what is Kai Havertz, really fundamentally, he is kind of that second striker mold. And, he's not strong enough to hold and resist contact in order to be a true number 9. I saw a lot of people compare him to Robin van Persie. This is not something that, I love. I think he has a lot of variety of finishing. And the one thing that you can compare with him with Robin van Persie is really his off-the-ball running intelligence. He's got a phenomenal ability to pick up gaps and pockets in between the last line. And so what you're looking at is a true off-the-ball rover, somebody who's going to be elite in terms of spatial awareness and recognizing where there's gaps in the back line. He's not going to be somebody that's going to resist contact very well. He's not going to be somebody that's going to move center backs very well. So I really doubt, beyond versatility of a false nine, he's not going to really play that role. And I think he's even made points, in terms of some of the transfer lengths, that he's coming to play in midfield. And that, for me, indicates a difference in how we're going to set up. Unfortunately, it's not a change I love. I'm going to say this right now, but it is a change where I've been talking on Twitter, and it's been a little bit more mainstream now, where I think that we're going to be moving to a 3-4-3 diamond in order to accommodate Kai Havertz. I mean, for me, that's the best way to accommodate his weaknesses in contact as a number 9, but also maximize his space invading. His ability to recognize gaps in the back line are going to be prioritized in the tip of a diamond formation. And so we've already played with a box midfield. We just might shift it slightly. And so by having him at the tip of it, you're able to let him be a creative hub that can free range. He's not able to be a primary creator, by the way, but he's an excellent facilitator. And so that's the big thing where, Martin Odegaard can still dictate attacks, but you've basically got Kai to kind of link and provide the efficiency in the final action, as well as somebody that can offer an aerial presence, in the box, but also somebody that can, go into the space that Jesus will leave when he is a +1 himself. So there is that dynamic there. But most importantly, by putting him at the tip of a diamond, you're not putting him to play as a pivot in midfield, which is something that you would have to do.
So what was in the tip of a what, George?
Tip of a diamond.
Top of a diamond.
Yeah, and so when you look at it, I think, I don't know why you're smiling. You've already admitted that that's not the formation that we want to go towards. So I mean, there's nothing. There's nothing.
You know why? You know why he's smiling.
You know exactly why I'm smiling. I don't know why you're trying to do this.
I know nothing of the sort. But exactly. Essentially, the best part that I was getting at too is defensively, Kai Havertz is not going to be defending in a pivot, and you're not going to be having him next to kind of the Partey or the Declan Rice now, kind of defending in a pivot that way. So by having a 3-4-3, I must say too, what you're looking at is, a little bit more of a different defensive structure. You might have this kind of, 3-2-5 where, the defensive midfielder is kind of going to be in the back a little bit more. Maybe we'll try to do a little bit of a special on what the 3-4 diamond might be if there's enough kind of interest in the
said in his interview that Havertz will add versatility and strength to our midfield. So it will be interesting to see where he plays, because a lot of people were saying you can't call him a left centre mid in our team on paper because it's just so minimizing his role. But yeah, it is an interesting signing, something I didn't necessarily want for 65 million pounds. We did help, or directly help a rival. They don't currently a rival, but you know what I mean. In Chelsea, it is a big money. We do have the money. The money was always going to be big for whoever we signed in that position. It isn't something that I really wanted. But on the player, I think talent-wise, he has great talent. He hasn't necessarily adapted what he did in Leverkusen to Chelsea. He has scored more goals in one season in Leverkusen than he has scored in his whole time at Chelsea. But he did score some important goals, penalties in finals, Champions League winning goal. So he is able to perform on the big stage. I know a lot of people care about that. They say that they bring Henry down because he didn't score in the final. So it's something that he does have against his name. He is another winner. Something we don't really have in the squad. He has won a lot with Chelsea, and I think he's a very versatile player. He is a good finisher on his day. He does miss a lot of chances, and if you think he'll come in and become a sharpshooter and never miss, wake up, because he will miss a lot of chances for us. But he does have the different dynamic that we don't have.
But this is what he does, right? Like, he's an off-the-ball invader. He's got the second most runs behind than Haaland. That's what he's going to be doing. He's not going to come necessarily to finish chances, but he's going to be coming to stretch the back line, right? And he's going to offer a lot of, the one thing that he'll do is the offensive role of Granit Xhaka. That's what he will be placed with. The defensive role, no. And we're going to reorient the midfield to not put him in those defensive positions. But this idea of somebody that's going to be running beyond the back line to stretch defenses, that's going to pop up with, third man runs to come in and finish, like, he can do those things. Just don't expect him to kind of be the main goal threat, the main creative threat, or even the main defensive leading of a press. Like, he can press as well. He's got good stamina. He's very fast.
And he does cause, sorry to cut you off, but he does cause a lot of turnovers.
Yeah.
With his press, he actually does get tackles, but he does foul a lot, to be fair. Trust me, I know, but he does cause a lot of turnovers. He's a weird player, like 6'4". We don't have that apart from our centre backs. We don't have that size in the midfield. Even in the midfield, we don't have that size.
Well, he's 6'4" in a 5'2" body in mentality. Yeah. And so, like, we have the frame, and I think that we're paying a lot for the frame there. But then, again, the one thing that I do say is don't expect him to play kind of in the pivot like Granit Xhaka did. We're going to be switching some of the midfield roles. I don't think he'll have huge frontline exposure. He'll be there as a variety. He can play right wing. It's not that he can't. And the reason that he can is because he's got excellent technique. He's actually got a really good cross on him. You know, a big part of his Leverkusen days, about a third of the time, was him in right wing and kind of this free role that, you know, allowed him to come inside. But also he can do the kind of the Rafinha profile where he's wide touchline delivering excellent crosses. Like, he can do that.
He can also play off a striker. He did that very well with Tammy as a backboard.
Well, actually, I was going to say, I think that's the best way to use him. He needs a physical backboard.
You can't beat a Tammy.
Yeah.
Off the striker.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think we're buying him for a future version of Arsenal, if we're really being honest, because, you know, who's the Kevin Volland in this Leverkusen team that everybody keeps citing how he had really well? Volland was the backboard that essentially allowed Havertz to kind of float and have the freedom to do that. We don't quite have that. I think Jesus does aspects that are okay, but, you know, he's not that same channel running 9. And I've talked about it on Twitter. Imagine the Kevin De Bruyne role playing off Haaland in this 3-4-3 diamond that we saw against Inter. Like, that's the role that will maximize Kai Havertz. And I think that when we get that big, strong channel running 9 next year, he's somebody that'll thrive with it. But, you know, I'm interested to see the off the ball shape. I'll be honest.
Go on.
No, just to end, like, really, Havertz, Odegaard, Declan Rice, plus one more is a very interesting proposition. I still think that it needs to be a very strong 6'8". I don't love the fact that it would be a prospect, and everybody knows that my big Ricedo dream is something that I could see this really working well towards. But fundamentally, when you've got somebody at the tip of a diamond, he's going to be somebody that I think will lead the press a bit more. And I'm interested to see Martin Odegaard's impact being a little bit deeper, because I do think Havertz pushes Odegaard deeper. Yeah. And that's going to be a question, regardless of whether or not you believe he can do it, which I think look, his sample doing it is bad. It's Gallagher, it's Liverpool. It's not great, but in possession, Odegaard's always been a second phase player. He's always been somebody that's a lot better controlling from deep and being able to kind of use his intelligent pocket play as somebody that can advance us going forward. So I'm interested. I'm interested to see what Havertz can bring to the efficiency of the final action, not necessarily finishing chances, but at least creating ways to kind of link a little bit better, because he is a facilitator at his core.
I think the attack will benefit from him. I don't think he himself has ever played in an attack as fluid as ours. I think the Chelsea attack, despite certain players being there, he has played with some very good attackers. Potter doesn't have great attacking dynamics. Tuchel doesn't either. Tuchel limited them with a 3-4-3, where him and Mount really played off of Tammy, and he did a lot of the creating. Mount was an elite finisher in that 2020 to 2022 period. Mount was an elite finisher. Him and Mount combined well. But yeah, he's a very big moments player. And for me, that screams of a player who's very confident in himself. And we do need that, because I think a lot of players shy away in tough moments for us throughout the season. And he scored in the Super Cup final. He scored in the Champions League final. He scored pens in the... What final was it with Liverpool? I don't know which one they went.
Carabao Cup.
Was it both? No, because they played them in the FA final as well, and they lost both. He scored pens in both finals. So he's another penalty taker. He won't take pens, just like people thought Jesus will take pens. He won't. Saka will take the pens. But yeah, I think wherever he plays, I think he will add a very different dynamic, as the movement is something we kind of lack. I was complaining about it on a video months back, that certain times Saka would have the ball, he'd look up and Jesus would drop deep to the edge of the box to collect. And now we have someone who does win a lot of headers despite being weak for a 6'4" striker. He does win a lot of headers on corners as well. So I do think he will be a beneficial player. How beneficial he will be, I'm yet to know, but there's potential for greatness and waste of 65 mil.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
the fee's bad. The fee's bad. Let's front, right? Even if it is 50 million base with like 15 million in add-ons, I'm not really sure which side you want to believe, but regardless, 65 million pounds is a lot. By the way, I don't think that he loses value. I think he makes up for it really quickly. And I just don't love the immediate change of a 3-4-3 diamond without a striker that can allow you to see him explode. But he's going to get goals. He's going to pay back the fee in no time, by the way. And I think a lot of people are laughing at the Havertz signing. And even though I don't love what he does to our dynamics off the ball, I will say he's going to thrive. It's the easiest thing to call in the world of football. He's going to go and he's going to probably get 15 goals and assists next season in the league. And everyone's going to say, what did Mikel Arteta do to basically juju this way into getting Havertz to bang? Yeah. And fundamentally, all he needed was a little bit more of a fluid attack. And he's going to do well. Like our attack, our structure off the ball is going to allow him to thrive and do stuff that he loves to do. So he's going to do excellently. I just don't know how our off the ball structure is going to be impacted from it. I do think I kind of agree with Nashville here in terms of Kiwior will have a lot more sample in this team with something like that. Like if we don't do another signing, let's say, there is a space kind of in that, left CM behind Havertz and Odegaard and Rice, where I don't believe that we've got a player that I love there. By the way, there's a certain one that's coming. Miles Lewis-Skelly would be phenomenal. He's the exact profile that you need to complement that kind of midfield, by the way. Another Ethan Nwaneri, who we're going to probably hear really good news on, little Bop exclusive. But anyways, those two are going to thrive in a diamond formation, and especially with kind of, I think Emile Smith-Rowe, by the way, another player, will thrive in this. Look, Emile at the tip of a diamond is a very scary prospect, Havertz does it in a different way. He's a runner off the ball, but Emile will be somebody that would thrive in that position, being able to have second man runs, the freedom to kind of be a runner and combine in different areas. Like, I think that this could benefit a lot of people in the squad. You look at Fabio Vieira. I think he would be phenomenal in the right central midfield spot. He could even be great at the tip of a diamond himself. So there's ways that this formation is going to really accentuate a lot of people in the squad, and I think that Kai will be a major success. But for me, I'm just very concerned about how we organize ourselves off the ball. I'll be looking forward to it. I think it'll be more in this 3-2-5, but maybe we do a Bop special about how we see that, because I've got some pictures to maybe show people what I mean.
Yeah, I'm making some as well. So we'll get into the tactical stuff in terms of what we're going to go through next season.
We got to end on Rice though, Karan.
Yeah, I know, but I just want to quickly there's a couple of things that I want to mention before we do get into Rice. The Havertz, you both mentioned the 6'4". You both mentioned his aerial prowess, and there are things
and
I
his
think
speed. He's very quick.
Exactly, that was literally the first thing I was going to say. So he's extremely quick. And if you remember going into this previous season, as this is a season review, one of the things that Mikel said to Xhaka was, you need to basically be a new player now. We want you to be basically a second striker that can do the things that he's done this season. So someone mentioned it earlier in the chat about let me see if I can find it, about how the Xhaka second striker role, he can be able to produce those back post headers. If you look how his time at Chelsea, he used to have that link up with Werner, where Werner would run to the front post, Havertz would run to the back post, and they'd basically combine from a Havertz header from the right wing to coming into the center. So you have the ability to have back post runs for White crossing in, Havertz knocking it down, and maybe Jesus. That could be a thing that works. Offensive corners. He's quite. I think people have underestimated. He's 6'4", guys. Like, he's not someone that's going to. He's obviously, he's got that languid body style, and he can be pushed off of the ball a bit. But in terms of just like his pure height, he has the ability to win headers. So
he did win headers on corners.
Corners.
With runs in the box, he did win a lot of headers. He did score a lot of headers for Chelsea, and it is something we
lack.
It's so weird because his technique, I wouldn't say, is strong. Like,
Yeah,
like
it's not
But he does
powerful.
win them.
he's
He
not
doesn't dominate
powerful.
anyone in the air at all, but he just
Yeah.
wins the headers.
But you know what it is? It's his intelligent movement. That's what I was going to say. His movement is what wins him these headers because he isn't particularly great at, or manipulative with his head in direction, generating power. Like he's not going to do the Gabriel in terms of, midair changing position and being able to guide a header down. Like he's not that. But his insane intelligence and spatial awareness, it's elite. That's what wins him all these headers.
But the thing is, the amount of goals we created this year, and this is the last point before we get into the last 5 minutes, but the amount of balls the amount of goals we've scored via cutbacks, his ability to hit the byline and cut, or find the space in the box for tap-ins or just basically shots across the box. He's very good at that. But the last thing we're going to have to do is, before we get into all the admin stuff, is talk about the signing we've talked about since 2021. But I don't think there was any.
Just quickly to answer this question, Martinelli is the perfect striker in a lab to complement a Kai Havertz.
Literally,
If
there's no
want it.
better. Like
And
he
there's no
could be the
better at that.
backboard. There's no one.
Yeah.
There's no one better. But we started this channel in 2021. There was a lot of people that said we were crazy. There was a lot of people that said we were dumb for even thinking about it because he's obviously going to Chelsea. We heard that Lampard was brought in specifically to bring Declan Rice to Arsenal. There was Thomas Tuchel loves him. It was going to bring him to Bayern, but we have him. Declan Rice. Every single member on this show right now said in 2021 that he was going to be at Arsenal. I've been smiling for the last 2 hours.
Now, what you're going to say now?
just-
Because you know what? We got called idiots, and then we got called Bot Footy Twitter.
Yes, BOP Twitter. BOP Twitter.
Yeah, BOP Twitter for making even the remote suggestion that Declan Rice is going to be coming to Arsenal. And so I'd be loving to hear what people have to say now, because apparently he's the best player since sliced bread now. There was a lot of horrific. Look, fundamentally, it's not even just about manifestation about it. We have just signed somebody that's going to be our Dennis Bergkamp in terms of impact. In history, when you look at it right now, we're not going to realize what we just did, but in terms of breaking the British transfer record, in terms of getting a player pre-prime that's able to do what he does, and he's going to be the best in his position for years to come, by the way. I don't think people realize how significant this signing is. I have a lot of fun on Twitter in terms of people saying, oh, well, do Arsenal get their first choice targets? Well, I guess we do, don't we? When we really want them to. Do Arsenal have the capital to even pay for a Declan Rice? Well, I guess we do. Yeah, well, look, there's tons.
Let's just quickly talk about that, though. The fact is I don't think there is a signing. We lost out on Thomas Lemar. We lost out on Lisandro Martinez. Just as 2 examples. Because we weren't either not able to convince the player, or we weren't able to put up the money and the player went somewhere else. We have now, I don't know if there is a bigger signing. I said it, and I don't care if I got cooked for it. I don't give a shit, because it doesn't matter. We have not made a signing this big since Dennis Bergkamp. I will say that again, because it's very, very true. We have not made a signing that defines an era like what Virgil van Dijk did to Liverpool, like what Dennis Bergkamp did to us. This is something that defines an era, like what the Ronaldo breakout for United when they went on to dominate for the latter parts of the 2020s, the 2000s. Sorry, this signing defines what Arsenal Football Club will be, because it shows the whole of Europe that if you're reasonable, we will meet you in the middle. We initially thought it was going to be 80 million. They then said after the conference final they wanted 120 million, and we met them in the middle. We said 100 million plus 5, and they said we don't believe your add-ons. Fine, we'll halve the add-ons and bring you more guaranteed money. It shows that there is a willingness to get deals done, and players really, really want to play for Arsenal. So it's that simple. We're not going and chasing after players and trying to convince them to come. Players are coming to Arsenal to basically play for us. They're coming to us now. So I just think that this is it's so massive in terms of what is happening with our club. It shows that we are a force in Europe, and it shows that we are going to be competing at the highest level and can compete at the highest level. Even forget just on the pitch, but off the pitch as well, because
But mate, I think it's
the
even
signings
bigger.
we
Like
can
we
make.
just chose that we beat European prestige powerhouses in Bayern Munich, and we beat the current treble
European
winners.
champions.
Yeah, the current treble winners to a signing. Like I don't think you recognize the well, not you, but like fans and rivals recognize the importance of this. You know, Arsenal in terms of us spending the big money. By the way, when is the last time that we've been able to do something like this? We haven't. In our history, we have not signed somebody that is at the peak of their powers that every single top club in the world wants pre-prime. Okay, when we bought Ozil, we bought him towards the end of a career. It wasn't pre-prime. It wasn't past Werder Bremen. We have not been able to do this type of signing ever in our history. It's going to be a first. And I don't think that, people understand how amazing this will be for us on and off the pitch.
For me,
I've said it's era defining, and just really quickly to end, you're going to be looking at a player right now that's going to be both England captain, Arsenal captain for the next 8 years.
I think, we just signed a player who led his team to their first trophy in 50 plus years. A European champion, another winner, another winner. We signed another winner. We need that winning mentality. But jokes aside, he is top 2 in his position in the world. The other guy probably plays for us right now. He may not next season, but he is one of the best players in position in the world. The best player in his position on the market. We signed him. A lot of people complaining, why is he 100 mil? It's because he's the best player in his position on the market. When the best player in their position on the market, a Van Dijk, gets on the market, you pay a 75 mil premium at the time, which probably ends up being 100 million if it was now. And West Ham did want the record, but Declan Rice, there's not much I haven't said about him the last 2 years. I thought he's the best DM in the league for 2+ years now. On my old account, I used to argue with people about Fabinho and all that stuff. But the impact Declan Rice will have on Arsenal for the next couple of years will be incredible, I think. Especially him being one of England's staples, has been for 2 years, will be for another 8 when he's 32, till he's 32 or so. He will be a staple in that England team, along with Saka, along with Ramsdale. Our spine is English. We have spoke about this for some time. Having a British spine does help a team that is really hated get a bit less hate. But he himself has had issues with referees, and he probably will have them with Arsenal. But I think, the quality of the player is incredible. I think there is ways to go, and there is improvements that need to be made. But 170 million spent, and we just want more, isn't it? And it's not even July yet. It's not even July yet, but the transfer window is looking incredible right now. But I hate talking about transfers, to be fair.
And we're going to have to.
Sadly.
But that is, I mean, we tried not to, but we did speak about all the transfers. We will be doing a transfer special on both signings in the next upcoming days. But before we go, if you go back to our first video, it's a draft. And there's a certain man on the screen right now that picked Declan Rice. Do you remember who it was?
It was him because he stole it.
Exactly.
He stole it. He stole it. He stole it. No. We literally had I remember this vividly. We had a convo about how great Rice was, like the hour before we did the draft.
So we agreed on how great he is, right?
Yeah, but you stole him in the draft. I wanted him, and I got him in the second draft though. I got Declan Rice in the second draft that we did.
Yeah, the first ever draft, I picked him. Said I wanted him over any other player in England. We finally got him over any other player in England. We didn't have the means to get him then. Now we do. British record. We couldn't have done that before. I think the last question, I know the answer, but people are going to ask you, do you think he's worth it? Like,
yes. He's undervalued. He's undervalued.
£5 million.
He's undervalued. We've actually got a great deal. He's actually undervalued. That's the simple answer. And the thing is, right, people will say that, hang on a second, what do you mean undervalued? Prices are determined by what the player does. When it comes all is said and done, that's when you define what if a deal was valuable for money or not. And if he does what we all on this screen think he will, win a European Cup, win a Premier League, you're paying 100 million for that. Are you crazy? I'll take that in a second. So I don't think there's any doubt. I feel like we've actually gone for a steal because there's teams that need this position coming up right now. He provides a role that at a level that a lot of teams won't have. Chelsea need that. City need it, obviously, because they bid for him. So I think we've actually gone for a great deal. That's just my personal opinion. George?
I mean, I don't know. There's not much more that I have to say on Declan Rice in general. Like,
I mean, we're going to have to in about a couple of days, but yeah, on that.
I mean, we'll talk a little bit more about how he fits tactically, but in terms of what does he mean to Arsenal? I mean, I've been doing all this stuff on Twitter for the longest time. Look, fundamentally, we're 12 days into the window, not 12 now. We're 14 days in the window, and Arsenal are on the verge of confirming 200 million worth of talent. And there's still pessimism from fans that I see. It's ridiculous. We've broken our British transfer record. We've shown that we have the prestige to beat other Champions League teams to targets. We've shown that we have the financial power to not only break the British transfer record when we want to, when we believe in the player, but we have shown a willingness to get the deal done. And I just think the funniest hypocrisy for me has been rivals trying to temper the trajectory of Arsenal with like these open-ended fears that other teams are going to progress as well, even though we're the youngest team in the league and that, we had a capacity to improve ourselves. But factually, we're the only team right now that are really moving with bone to pick in the market. And I love it. And I just think that, what's been lost in the jubilation of kind of just winning a race against City, and City don't lose many races, by the way. I don't think
it's been spun that they just pulled out of the race.
Yeah, no, they lost it, and that's fine. And fundamentally, I don't think we realize not just the football importance, but the cultural impact of what's going to come. Arsenal have sent a clear message to the global world: it's our time, and we're going to take it. And I just love it.
Yeah. On that note, go on, do your thing so we can get the hell out of here.
Well, guys, thank you so much for sticking with us, and we're really glad that you guys are back. Thank you so much for the kind comments and support. Yeah, it's been a little bit of difficulty with us away, but we're back with some new ideas, new content, new creation, and we love it for you guys to stick around. So make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. You hit the bell for notifications to know when, in fact, we do upload. You can find all the boys' socials up, down, over here. Me at GeorgeV_AFC, of course, at CurranBOP, and at CKFTBL. On Twitter for Chris. Guys, thank you so much. We're going to be coming back with a lot more stuff. We hope to see you guys on the next episode, and we'll catch you guys later. Peace.
Peace.